poison in a pocket store mannequin. She always leaves me breathless and panicking. There's nothing I can do but stay out of sight. With every touch, makes my stomach feel uneasy. She says my name and my thoughts get crazy. There's nothing I want more than this tonight. Lips the color of poison dark frog. Eyes the blue of my deepest fantasies. Such clearness keeps getting away. Sweet like antifreeze. She's got this voice that was down from the hill, and it descends to 95 and kills. But you know I die for a word from those lips. There is no alignment for other agendas, and we always decided someone to defend us. But it all fades away when she wiggles those hips. Lips the color of a poisoned out frog. Eyes the blue of my deepest fantasies. She's like a train that keeps getting away. She's like antifreeze. She is the one who inhabits my dreams. You can tell by the blood in its dreams. But all in all, you know I've got no regrets. I may be ruined, but she's made it an art. And when she sees me, I'm much softer than hard. And she might find love by no second guess. Lips the color of a poisoned out frog. Eyes the blue of my deepest fantasies. Such a like just down the way. She's like antifreeze. She's like antifreeze. She's like antifreeze.
Hey, I am here. I'm failing at trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing to stream this on my TV so I can see what I'm talking about. Where the fuck am I here? I have a button that'll play on TV, and I'm saying yes to that, and I think things are happening. We'll see. Definitely super ready for all the things right now. I see there's a couple of humans watching. I think those are both me, actually. Hi, me. I'm so neat. Ooh, I didn't even think about my hair. Oh, whatever will I do? Hi, I'm live streaming. I figured I would just take a minute to chat about something that was on my mind this morning. And it's actually, I think it's fair to say that this is Vosh and Hassan's fault. Both of them were talking about I don't know what the fuck is happening. Yeah, something's happening. I don't know. Things look like they're working. We'll figure it out. I see Getting Late with Nate saying hi. Hey, Nate, how you doing, buddy? It's good to see you. Or, you know, at least see a small avatar of you. And if you're watching on Facebook, sorry, but I'm probably not going to see shit for comments because apparently Facebook is a giant pain in the ass. So yeah, I was watching this video this morning with Hassan talking about this CIA recruitment video that they've made where they have like the intersectional feminist Latina woman who is a member of the CIA, and like the CIA is this great environment if you want to be an intersectional progressive thinking person who also destroys entire cultures, which is kind of a mixed bag when you think about it. Not gonna lie, it could be a better thing if we weren't, say, a CIA operative, but that's just me. I'm talking crazy talk. And I was giggling along because I totally agree. I'm like, how does that make sense that we have like recruitment where it should be like, hey, we're looking for really bright people and we want to give them a lot of money to do some admittedly very terrible things, but all in the name of, nationalism. That I could at least appreciate. I could, endorse and be like, okay, yeah, the world is the world, and sometimes, ugly things happen, and some people will take those jobs, and that's cool. But to promote the idea that, like, I work for the CIA because I'm an intersectional feminist, it's a bit of a hard pill. So I'm really not terribly big on that. I'm gonna quickly just make a comment here that says, "Hey, I'll try to watch the Facebook chat, but it is sucky. Maybe try YouTube or what the fuck is that other thing? Twatch." And this one will show up on my feed. That one will show up no problem. But if I want to actually have somebody respond to that, that's just silly. Anyways, I thought it was a hilarious little video, and then I saw Vosh did a take on it later, and I was like, haha. But it got me thinking about the way that recruitment is different than what it was when I was a young feller, and in interesting ways. I've talked about this before. With Restream, I believe you can see Facebook chat, but have to respond on Facebook to Facebook, if that makes sense. My actual understanding from the research I've done, because I keep doing these and there's no Facebook interaction whatsoever, and then I go on Facebook and there's like 50 comments that I didn't see. And I did research, and I actually found a video where these expert streamer dudes were like, "Oh yeah, we're expert streamers, and we know the answer is that Facebook sucks. They keep changing their API, and Restream can't keep up, so they just don't bother." By the way, love my T-shirt. It's Charles Darwin, but it's like the cover of that fucking movie with that thing that guy that did Scarface. So that's the pretty awesome thing. Anyways, when I was a kid, my first real experience watching recruitment happen was white supremacists. I was hanging out in Northland Mall instead of going to high school. I went to high school, but I often didn't. I would come home from school, and my parents would get that automated phone call that says that I skipped class, and they'd be like, "Son, did you skip class?" I'm like, "I went to the mall." And if they heard I went to them all as opposed to what I said, which was I went to the mall, well, that was, I can't control how they interpret what I said. I was a sketchy little prick. Anyways. So I found over the time, all of a sudden there was, I graduated high school, and I was working in the mall nearby, because, malls were what was available to people at the time, mall jobs. And I ended up working at the arcade in the mall, in Market Mall, and Northland Mall is where I'd hung out. So I used to hang out in Northland Mall and go to Market Mall to work. But I obviously hung out a lot less because, the world. And Market Mall was way bigger, way cooler, way nicer, but my friends were all in Northland Mall. And I would go to Northland to hang out, and all of a sudden there was a bunch of people with shaved heads, and they were people I knew. And I was like, "Hey, you guys got a new barber." Like, what the fuck do I know? And it turns out they'd all become Nazis when I blinked. And there was some new kid in town who was going to the school, and he was a little Nazi feller. And so they all were like, "We should also be little Nazi fellers." And they became Nazis. And the recruitment process back then was very obvious. There'd be some guy who would look around for people who looked like me, and he would sit down and like have coffee with you while you're hanging out in the mall. Because really, when you're a teenage kid at the time, back in the early whatever fucking 1930s, however the world was when I was that age, that's what you did. You went and hung out in the mall. And it's pretty easy to tell, like, who were the poor kids, who were the rich kids, who were the angry kids, who were the punk rock kids, who were the metal kids. And you targeted the punk rock and the metal kids because they were probably, pissy. I think that's a fair statement. And you would listen to their woes and you would convert all of their woes into commentary on, scapegoats. So for most of the kids that I knew at the time that got sucked into this were they were not working. So you'd be sitting in the food fair and homeboy would be like, "Oh, it sucks that you don't have a job, man. But you know what? Look over there at that A&W. 3 Asian people, all of them, fresh off the boat. Didn't matter if they were fresh off the boat or not. That's just what they would say. Ooh, fresh off the boat. And it's not fair, and you should have that job, but they wanted to give it to some foreigner. And it was always done in a way that was more subtle than what I'm saying, obviously. But it works out to the same thing. But you're preying on people in their moment where they're already feeling that frustration of life and they're down. And someone's there in your ear whispering, going, you know what, you're right and they're wrong. You're cool and they're bad. Everyone loves you, and I don't know why these horrible people are allowed to have their horrible lives where they take away from you, the proud person. You were here first. Now, never mind the fact that it turns out white people historically were not here first. But that's a story for another day. What matters is recruitment towards those kind of movements at the time focused almost exclusively on finding people who were frustrated and exploiting their frustrations and just being like, dude, I get you. That's why we should hate people who don't look like us. And that, at least you could see it coming. I remember, a couple of years later, it was after I graduated college, back when I still had the shaved head, but was not a Nazi. I was hanging out outside my office smoking, because I do that. And this guy walks up to me and, come walking up and he's like, hey. I'm like, hey. How you doing, man? I'm good. Like, do I know you? And he's like, no, but I think you should. Which sounds like an Amway thing right there. And I was like, why the fuck should I? Okay, what do you mean? And he goes, well, like, me and my friends, we have a group that we hang out, we get together, and like you would really fit in. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, because I'm obviously a rational skeptic asshole, and I was like, so you saw me on the street and you were like, this feller fits in with my friends. I wonder what could have been the thing that made me stand out for you in that sense. I'm betting it was the white skin. And that's about it. And sure enough, he explained that he was not, in fact, a racist. Just that, whites had to look out for whites because there was a lot of people, downtown. All the other groups were doing it. They were all forming their little group gangs. And he needed, to help the white gang kids feel like they had people looking out for them too. It was about brotherhood. It was about protecting ourselves and, it wasn't about hating on any of those terrible, terrible brown people. It was just, helping. Good helper. So, needless to say, I did not join his motley crew. I do not consider this to be the road less traveled or the one that got away or in any way something that I missed out on. Just some fucking random dude. But that was the thing. You could see it coming. Amway was another one. They'd walk up to you, you'd be working in some shitty mall job, and they'd come up and be like, hey, how's it going? You're doing a great job. Let me tell you how great a job you're doing. You are so cool. You're a hard worker. I own a company that I really respect hard work. My business philosophy has always been that your hard work, if we're working together, that just benefits all of us. If you're working hard and I'm working hard, we're working hard together. Let me tell you about the company I work for. And then they would do everything in their power not to use the word Amway because everyone fucking knows that the minute you say Amway, you're just a full of shit douche nozzle. And I don't care about you anymore. So it's, that was what recruitment was when I was a kid, and I'm old as fuck. And recruitment has gotten better. I remember hearing the first time I heard about this was Scientologists. The fucking Scientologists. When when they were becoming more media savvy and getting a lot more people involved who were actually like John Q. Public types and getting like the Tom Cruises and all those kinds of people when they were building their brand, for want of a better term, and sort of distancing themselves from those early L. Ron Hubbard throwing people off a boat and keel hauling them and getting banned from Britain kind of days. They were trying to hit this respectable place. And you kept hearing about people who were Scientologists who like didn't know they were Scientologists until they were like, holy shit, I'm a Scientologist. And it feels so right. And it was always like, they would target groups like dentists. I remember hearing about this thing with this dentist who was a Scientologist and who had left the incredible Faith O Faith. And he literally was like, woke up one day, there was a thing in the mail that was like, hey, we're having a dental convention for dentists. And he was like, I'm a dentist. I should go to that. It's probably like a write-off, and I can go see Aunt June, who lives in California, maybe work on my bikini tan. Ends up going to this thing, meeting some people, really, really just a great group of professional, wonderful people. And like 2 years later, he's giving his money to the church going, whoa, I'm a Scientologist. How'd that fucking happen? They were the originators of that, like, fooling you slowly and like the frog in the hot water thing where you bring the water up to a boil and the frog doesn't know he's boiling in the water and therefore becomes soup, which is apparently a bullshit story. Apparently, if you put a frog in water and start warming it to a boil, the frog will eventually be like, it's really fucking hot in here. I'm going to leave. Because frogs are not as stupid as we think. But Scientologists, a lot closer to home for me is the Mormons. And very much, when you think recruitment, most of the time I imagine what comes to people's minds is things like the army, that sort of thing. Or, for a fellow like me who works in the IT world, recruiters will try and get you to care about them so that they can get you money, new gigs so that they can make money off you and all that kind of stuff. Which also is a hysterical example, now that I think about it, of terrible, shitty recruitment tactics. When I was in my first real job, I was like the director of strategic web services after a few years of working for this company. I was very much like a worthwhile member of the organization, like at top management kind of level. And I would go, because I looked very young, I would go to these events that this information processor society would put on. And we'd be sitting at a table, and you'd have a moment where everyone's like, beforehand, they're all talking to each other. They don't talk to me because I look like a child and an idiot. So they'd talk to each other and ignore the fuck out of me. And you could tell that every single person around the table was a recruiter. They were not an IT person. They didn't know anything about computers and would joke about, I come to these things and I don't even know anything about computers. And the whole table would be like, me too. And I'd just be sitting there going, you guys are fucking losers. This is your lunch? And eventually they'd have this whole, like, you have to, talk to the person next to you, give them your business card. We're networking. It's good. And they'd, someone eventually would look over at me and be like, ugh, here's my business card, wiener. What do you do? And I'd be like, I'm the director of strategic web services for this consulting firm. And they'd be like, well, and immediately try and recruit me and try to, like, because I'm all of a sudden a worthwhile person because I have a cool job title and still manage to look like a fucking idiot. and a child. Admittedly, I'm being salty, but that those were the bad recruiting. The Mormons are brilliant at recruiting. If imagine, if you will, Saturday morning, knock on the door. You open the door. There's two teenage boys in shitty Hudson's Bay Company white dress shirt button-up things with little name tags, and they're like, "We'd like to tell you that, one day, if you're a really good person, you can go to space heaven, where you get to have sex with a lot of women and populate entire planets, unless you're a woman, in which case you get to be a space whore." I feel, just feel, but I feel like that would be a hard sell. I can't imagine a lot of people the world over going, "Tell me more about your space whoring program." It's like the weirdest fucking faith, and especially before they like made the changes to not be quite so illegal, like the whole plural wives thing. I'm gonna break for a moment and just quickly tell you about the plural wives thing. It's the single greatest thing in all of religious history. So the concept of the whole part of plural wives in Mormonism comes from a particular section of the Doctrine and Covenants, which is like a book written by God through Joseph Smith, but it's not the Book of Mormon. And it's literally like the whole section is like a letter from God to Emma Smith, who was Joseph Smith's wife. And it's like, "Dear Emma, hi, it's me, God, the All-Father. Anyway, now that we've got that aside, I really want you to let Joseph fuck other women. It's important to me, as God, that Joseph can fuck other women. I know that might seem like a weird thing for a deity to say. I'm a weird guy. Trust me, really want Joseph to fuck other women. And you, please, just don't feel bad about it. Because it's me, it's God, it's my fault. It's not Joseph, it's God. Yeah, Joseph's writing this down, but trust me, it's God. Hope you're well. Signed, God." Right? Like, what a fucking... Can you imagine being some, like, shifty layabout cult leader in the, the early frontier days of the world and being like, "Well, Mom, I don't want to have sex with all the random people, but here's a letter. You'll notice the postmark there. It's from God." I'm pretty sure that would be the leading cause of divorce in that particular marriage. But, whatever. I'm off topic. The Mormons, like I said, if they showed up at the door and they were like, "Hey, here's all the really ridiculously insane things." I got a comment on Facebook, and I looked at it at the right time from Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing, buddy? Have you ever heard how Amway spread lies about Procter and Gamble in the 80s? They spread leaflets around saying that the CEO went on the Phil Donahue show and said they donated 10% of their profits to the Church of Satan. Crazy shit. I did not hear that. I will tell you right now, I am not surprised. Amway was a crazy shit environment. I actually, and I will admit that I had a brief, couple of weeks long where I was like curious about it. And there was a guy, I was working in a popcorn stand. I was like married and working I don't think I was married yet, but I was working a popcorn stand trying to like survive. And there's this dude and he's saying all the stuff. And I was like, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe like he seems like a pretty cool dude. And I went to a couple meetings and I was like, nope, this is cult shit. This is some cult shit. Peace. Because that's exactly, it was totally that. And I could 100%, I don't know that they did that kind of crazy, but I would not be in any way surprised if they did that kind of crazy. Donated their profits to the Church of Satan. Who doesn't, right? I mean, like every single donation I've made so far tonight, I have directly sent to the Church of Satan. Not the Satanic Temple. I want the actual weird Church of Satan, Anton Zandor LaVey, where they like pretend like they don't believe in God, but also there's witchcraft in the world. That's what I want. But I'm kidding. So yeah, if Mormons showed up at your door and they were like, "Bro, space horse. You would be like, no, I'm good. So they don't do that. They show up at your door and they're like, we don't even want to talk about the Jesus. Don't want to talk about him. Maybe we'll leave you some literature if you're interested. But can I like mow your lawn? And you go, yeah, stupid, mow my lawn. All right. And then like a week later, they're like, how you doing, guy? You looking well? Have you been losing weight? Ah! And tick, 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 time marches on, and they're like, hey, listen, I was hoping that maybe I could like clean the inside of your house. Maybe, just like tidy everything for you. And you're like, fuck yes. And then you feel guilty and you're like, would you like to stay for dinner? And they're like, would it be okay if I did like the blessing? It's super chill and no one's gonna like, we're not converting you, but I do want to do the thing. And you'd be like, you know what? What's the harm, right? And what they're doing is subtle. More and more, they're making themselves helpful and kind, and they represent a nice kind of community. And when you're talking, they're like, guy, here's the thing. Like, it's cool. It's so cool that we can help you, and we love everybody. And like, our whole duty in life is to go and just share the word. Like, you don't have to hear it. We're cool. But we want to build community. We're about community, and we're about family. They always stop right before they say, and we're totally against the gays. But that's, that's an oops. I'm sure they meant to say they were against the gays. But yeah, community, family. These are the things. And you know what? My ex-wife got sucked into this. And I was living in a different province, and I was watching it happen from afar, and I'm going like, holy shit. And I would say, like, do you see what the fuck this is? And she'd be like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. They're just nice people. They have a mission. They're out trying to help. They know that I am a single mom and I have 4 children, and they just want to help. They care about the community. And I think that's beautiful. And frankly, that makes me want to know more about them. It makes, what makes them such good people? And clearly I'm needing to work on that. And these are the tactics that sucked my ex-wife in. My kids ended up being raised in the Mormon church. Fortunately, all of them saw through the magic underwear bullshit, and they're not members. But that was a thing. It was a very, very, very big thing. And I had no power over any of it, which like sucked all kinds of butt. Just making sure no more Facebook comments. Short and skinny of it, I found the whole thing fascinating at the time, watching this go down with my ex-wife and watching the effectiveness with which they sort of led her slowly into the fold. And I kept saying stuff like, ask them about their magic underwear, ask them about plural wives, ask them why black people only recently became human. All of these things are like valid parts of the church. And they'll the Mormons will argue about Brigham Young's kid, I think, was, or maybe Brigham Young himself was black or part black, and therefore, like, there couldn't be racism. But there was all kinds of racism. We brush by all that because we get a shiny pamphlet and a really warm message of community and family and what's wrong with the world, because it used to be better and it's not good anymore. And maybe you think the reason that it's not good anymore is because people don't like Jesus anymore, but that's okay. We're not even going to talk. We don't have to talk about that. We'll just mow your lawn. And it's sneaky and it works. I really genuinely believe that somewhere along the line, Nazi alt-right dudes got recruited into Mormonism and were like, we can use this. Because it stopped being some kid in a food court going, you know what I hate? Also, how you are poor because of them foreign devils. That was easy to see coming, and most of us were like, fuck off. The new alt-right is the polished alt-right. It's the guy who's like, yes, it's not that I discriminate or I think anything is horrible or awful. I just believe in racial realism. I believe in the science behind hate. That's a thing But they don't start there, right? If you look at the paths of radicalization that people go through, it starts with Fox News and Ben Shapiro, right? And Joe Rogan. No sassing on Joe Rogan. I'm not a fan of the Joe Rogan podcast thing. I get that a lot of people are. I get that a lot of people will defend that. Oh yeah, he sure held one Nazi to account once, so therefore that's good. But frankly, he platforms a lot of people, and I don't think he intentionally platforms people to promote a racist agenda. I think he platforms people and sort of gives them the opportunity to do their thing. So he can have Bernie Sanders on. He can have Ben Shapiro on. He can have fucking, whoever, some Fuentes bullshit creep on. He gives them a platform and allows them to speak and doesn't really, get in the way of the conversation. But you know what? That platform matters. People hear it and they go, that person had a lot of interesting points. I had a similar reaction years ago when I first watched the movie American History X. I remember the scene in the movie where they're having, if you have, spoiler alert, there's a movie. They're having dinner and lunch, and it's like a flashback scene from before Derek goes to jail, and they're sitting around the table, and the mom has brought a guy home for family lunch, and he happens to be not just Jewish, but also a teacher at Derek's school. And Derek knows he's Jewish, and it's just like sitting there fuming. And then he starts saying these little, shooting little things out, and they were talking about the Rodney King riots, which I was alive for, that, and because I'm old. And that was a really interesting thing where racists really, that was one of the emboldening times because they were so passionate about protecting the cops that beat Rodney King. And they captured that really well in the movie. And there's this sort of building horror between Derek, so full of anger, and this teacher. And he ends up, pulling down his shirt, revealing this swastika tattoo that he has, and you're not welcome here, all the terrible shit. This is why I don't live stream that often. I'm trying to get better at it. I totally forget where I was going. I was talking about fucking Mormons, and somehow, Mormons always make me think of American History X, but shit, I can't remember where I was going. Drink some beer. All right. Got to get back on the horse. Yeah, I don't have a clue where I was going with that. It's a good scene in the movie. Just watch the movie, but I don't know. I could probably, have made a tighter segue. Where was I? I was talking about Mormons, and I would say ask about the magic underwear. I would say hey, these things are this is all stuff out of their book. And I remember saying what would you say if our kids were gay? And she was like, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care at all. They love everyone. And I was like, do they, or did they say that when you're new? And of course, it turned out that they say that when you're new, and they were really, really shitty about gay people and black people and anyone who wasn't honky enough for them and regular enough for them. And it's a very conservative faith too, right? It is no accident that there's a lot of very successful people who are Mormons, because the faith builds this kind of cult of success as a veneer to show people that, yeah, look, if you're a Mormon, you'll be rich and successful and powerful. The recruitment process with them, I think, is just really cool. And how they focus on family values, how they focus on convincing you to adopt this ridiculous philosophy, a little taste at a time. And then the alt-right, like I said, I felt like they hopped on that whole platform, and they looked at it and they were like, they would go on mommy nets. They would go on anti-vaccine groups, flat earth groups, like anywhere where you could find disenfranchised people. And again, my experience when I was a kid with the way that they were recruiting people was totally, that's what they were always looking for. But in this case, they're not looking for like angry teenagers. They're looking for all the people who feel that frustration. And so if you're like a stay-at-home mom and your mommy net is your key to the world and stuff, anti-vax just goes hand in hand with that, which is weird and creepy, but totally a thing. So you're a stay-at-home mom. You've got this message board. You're making friends on. It's fun. It's cool, and all the people, they're not saying vaccines will make you your baby have 8 heads. They're just talking about like their own experiences and horrible things they heard. But you know what? It's okay, and it's this funnel. Oh, that's what I was doing. I was doing the funnel. Fox News, Ben Shapiro, these mommy net posts about vaccines and autism or whatever. All of it slowly builds until all of a sudden you're standing in a freedom of speech march and someone's holding a swastika and you're like, this is good. I'm glad I'm standing up for the free speech. What the fuck? No, that is the Scientologist going, how am I a Scientologist? How did that even happen? I went to a fucking dental convention. The method of recruitment has become so much more subtle, so much more effective, and so much wider of a net. Because you can't find 1 million teenagers hanging out in food courts being pissed off enough to justify the size of the alt-right. So you go to all of these fringe groups. You find all of the people who feel like they're questioning authority and feel like they're rebelling against the status quo, and you feed them. You give them those little relationships, especially the internet relationships that don't have to be real, and you give them little bits and pieces of information that point them in directions, and you encourage them to do their own research. And then when they do their own research, you go, yeah, but not that research. Let me show you what the real research is. And we saw, with pandemic and the early days of the pandemic that we're currently living through, we saw people who, like, I know I was blown away at some of the people that were like, this is what I've done the research. And by research, I mean I hit play on YouTube, and it turns out this deranged lying woman is actually a goddamn prophet, and I'm buying special underwear, and I'm gonna Tansy. Is that high, Sugar? I think that's high, but I also feel like I don't know, so I'm asking. Anyways, hi, Sugar. Where was I? See, this is why I live stream. I'm smart, working on using brain parts. The way, oh man, I'm gonna edit the fuck out of this when I'm done. Hey, if you're really impressed by my incredible oratory skill, why don't you try liking and subscribing? Oh, fuck. Where was my brain? Yeah, Nazis are bad. The effective way in which they have hopped onto these other groups that are full of disenfranchised people who don't fit their normal, like, well, what I think of as an old man, of their usual stomping grounds of hate. And they're also smarter now in the sense that, like, everyone's always like, oh, but the Proud Boys have a guy who is not a white fella who is leading the organization. So how can they be white supremacists? And the answer is fucking simple. They don't care. They're not as hung up on the moral conundrum of white supremacy, but they are white supremacists. They're willing to have a foot soldier. They're willing to have a leader who touts the same message as they do. It doesn't matter to them that he is not a white fella. What matters is he's one of the good ones. And they'll throw him away in a heartbeat. And they did. Although I think, I don't know what the truth is, but there's all these stories about how he was a secret CIA informant or FBI informant, or I don't know, he was working with the feds in some way. I don't know if any of that's true. Gavin McInnes apparently broke the news, but it doesn't matter to them that what was his name, Enrique. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking care. It doesn't matter that he was Hispanic or Latino, whatever the appropriate term is. What matters to them is that he said what they wanted to hear. And they don't have to always say, and therefore white people, or the Jewish question, or whatever. They can be in a group full of people who are completely different than them, but focused on that asshole, violent misogyny. And they're like, yeah, we're good with this. We're good. You know why they're good? Because it will still work. They will still be able to go and get in fights and all that stuff. And eventually their message gets through, right? It may not be the group of the Proud Boys that spreads the word, the Jewish question around or whatever, but it's the same fucking people. And if they've got a group that they hang out with where the grand poobah happens to be a not white fella, all right, we're still fighting the libs and punching people in the mouth for defending goodness. So we're good. We're happy. We're content with our lot in life. That's where we have to stop thinking of the right in the idea that I grew up with, the Nazi skinheads. Even back then, the Nazi skinheads were not the threat to the world. It was the Nazi lawyers and the Nazi doctors and the Nazi politicians and the Nazi everybody else. Because fascism will never go away. Fascism is a worldview that is not tied to Adolf Hitler. It is not tied to any of it. Twitch keeps buffering. I'm going to the tubes. Well, I hope the tubes are better. My kilobytes per second are really shitty. I think it's because I'm doing the streaming to 76 different places at the same time. I don't know. But hopefully the tubes are cleaner. The lesson in all this, in my opinion, is that we need to be aware of the ways in which people are recruiting. And it can be job recruiting, it can be army recruiting, it can be those stupid fucking CIA video that started all this. Hi, sugar, long time. We just need to be aware of their techniques and of their strategies and their processes so that we can see through them and make our own minds up. If my door got knocked at 7 a.m. and it was the Mormon missionaries and they did the whole conversation about, yeah, we're here and we're eventually, when we die, we go to super space and we get to have lots of space sex with our army of space concubines. Like, cool. At least I know what you're talking about and I can clearly go, you're fools and idiots and you need to get off my lawn. But we don't get that, right? Scapegoating isn't the same as it used to be. Partly because fucking everyone's scapegoating. Like, ever since 9/11, holy fuck. And I'm very much, I will own this. I used to have a blog called Meddling Kids. It was a rational, science-based atheist group blog me and a buddy of mine ran. And I absolutely spread some Islamophobic stuff. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time. but I will absolutely own that. And I don't believe that Islamophobia is a good look. I would say that my hate towards Islam at the time was not about Islamic people. I would say that my hate at the time was more about the troubles of the darker side of Islam. And by that, I'm referring to like essentially the alt-right, but Islamic, right? The Islamo-fascist movement. And I'll own it. I definitely was not perfect. I posted, and I was equally shitty to Christians. I was equally, like, if there was a Myanmar Buddhist thing that I disagreed with, I'd call it out. I don't really think I was Islamophobic so much as I was getting swept into the current of that mood. Why do they all want to recruit others, though? If I was going to heaven, I would want elbow room at the dinner table law. Totally, right? I much more understand the perspective of the Westboro Baptist Church, who are staunch Calvinists. And I'm not defending those pricks, but their whole attitude is that there's a finite number of people in heaven. It's already been decided. Nothing you do fucking matters. We're just here to yell at you. That's obviously, the short Coles Notes form, but basically that's their thing. They don't believe that they can reach the people that God hates and make them someone that God loves, because God can't. God already wrote it down in a book a long time ago, and you're already fucked, so just get over it. That at least I can understand. Like, you can have some basis for, there's a finite amount of space. But this whole idea that, like, everyone gets a planet full of space prostitutes. Like, what? How the fuck does that? Not prostitutes, but, you know what I mean. Space concubines is I meant to say concubines. I was actually struggling that whole time with the word. Prostitutes came out. But yeah, space concubines. Anyways, back in the day, I got swept up in the Islamophobia, and I saw through it because I started to see other people who I was following at the time who were posting what could only be described as truly hateful shit, and they were doing it the same way that I was doing it, and I wouldn't have posted the stuff that they were posting because I'm not a hateful shit kind of person. But they were doing it. They were spreading that all over the place. There's not enough vaginas headed to heaven for all that. Lol. Right? Like, for a very misogynistic faith, Mormonism really expects that there's 10-to-1 ratio of women to men that are going to heaven. I guess God likes taco. Anyway, so I saw myself doing this, and I was like, I need to really think about this. And that was actually a very important transformative moment where I was like, I need to be better at what I'm doing and better at how I'm thinking. And so I stopped for a while. I stopped the whole blog thing, and I got my head on a bit more straight. And I strongly looked at, okay, why am I reacting in this way? And the fact is, there's some stuff in Islam that I don't like, just as there's some stuff in Christianity that I don't like. In fact, I don't like religion. But the vitriol that I was using wasn't doing me any favors. The focusing on it just made me less happy. So I quit. But I found myself, getting swept up at that time. And again, the concept of recruitment. It can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. I really believe we've just gotten better at refining our tactics. Scapegoating has always been a thing. It's, you don't believe me, well, explain Trump. The guy's entire candidacy was based around how brown people are real dangerous. Explain the reaction of BLM. Oh my God, brown people are going to burn the world down. Are they? Or are they just real fucking fed up that you keep calling them brown people? keep killing them and stuff. Like that might have something to do with it. I don't know. I'm no expert. Women are way too villainized in most religions. We going somewhere less oppressive for sure. You know what? You're not wrong. It's always stunning to me how like clearly religions are written by dudes, because there's just nothing but disdain. Like women take the brunt of everything. Women are the cause of original sin. Women are the reason why, they're the cause of everything. And that's also not just religion, but also historical fiction. I mean, Helena Troy, she was pretty, and therefore an entire war happened because she was too pretty. That's fucking weird. We need to consider all this recruiting shit and put it in the space that it belongs in, which ultimately is the garbage can. But we need to see it when it's coming. We need to be able to identify it and speak to it and recognize it. And when it sweeps us up, we need to take a pause, as I did, and go, hang on, what's going on here? What am I doing? The key is that there's a new level of disingenuous to it. They don't tell you about the space concubines. They tell you about the family values. They don't tell you you're going to join a church that was invented by a science fiction writer. They get you to a dental convention. They don't tell you that the brown people took your job. They tell you that the brown people, they're fine. It's just that the science is clear that, not everyone is equal. And the SJWs want to believe everyone's equal, but, DNA, which we don't understand, but which I totally do because I read a thing on the internet, because I do my own research. Have you talked about how the women in these alt-right groups are essentially passed around like meat on a platter? I haven't, because I was talking about recruitment, but that's not an incorrect statement by any stretch. And I do think that feeds in when, like, incels are often targets of white nationalism. You've watched a few docs on it. I'm speaking way out of my wheelhouse here because I'm far too old and far too have sex a lot to be an incel. Nor am I, hanging out with the alt-right at all. So I don't know necessarily what I'm talking about. But my experience and what I've heard ever since is that there are really two kinds of women in the, far right world. And that is the women who are the pass-arounds and the women who are the doting spouse of the big man. And the interesting thing is, almost every time I hear about the doting spouse of the big man, she's not white. I don't know what the fuck the world, how that one happens, but like you hear all the time about these terrible fucking racist dudes who are like, and my wife's Japanese, yeah. Cool, dude. I bet your wife really likes the way you are. I'm horrified for her. But yeah, there's a strong sense of like, I think what it boils down to is when you are in a community that is like that, the alt-right and those similar communities, they become your world because you are immediately forced to isolate from the world around you. And that is not a mistake, or sorry, it's not an accident. It's definitely a mistake. It's not an accident on the behalf of these groups. They're very well aware of the effect of their membership on your social life. But they will fill that fucking void, won't they? They'll be right there. So if you're a woman, there are less of you. And the proud white men have their proud white seed to spill. And so you wind up basically being convinced to be a pass around. That's gross. It's yucky, but that's how it do. So definitely, I can't imagine being a woman and thinking, this might be the life for me. But then again, I can't imagine being a man and thinking, oh wow, the Jewish question. This might be the hill I want to die on. I don't know. I find the whole thing troubling. And as I keep talking, I keep wondering more and more what the fuck my point was. I definitely, I'm not 100% sure anymore. I know that we need to keep our eyes open. And I know that I wanted to talk about the ways that things have changed in the way that they recruit. But I feel like at some point today there was like a whole, and that's the thing I need to get out. And I didn't write it down. So there's that. So that's basically all I'm going to say on the subject. However, I'm more than happy if anyone's on and wants to chat a little bit or whatever. I'm more than happy to converse. If you have questions about the babbles that came out of my mouth, aside from what the fuck was the point, because I clearly can't answer that, more than happy to do so. And I will again take a moment to show off my awesome shirt. It's Charles Darwin. He's holding the book of Origin of Species, the Book of Evolution, and a gun. I think that's a gun. I can't tell. It's upside down. It's been a long time since I looked. You do distract me, sugar. In fact, I don't think it's that. I think I literally, like 5 minutes before I went live, I was on the phone with a friend talking something completely different. And I was like, yeah, no, it'll be fine. And I wanted to be all like just off the cuff. And I had the whole thing in my head, and I wrote down like 5 points in a Google Doc. And I was like, yeah, this will be fine. And then I started, and every fucking step of the way, even before you got here, sugar, I'd be like, and let me tell you about, I forget what the fuck I was going to say. I'm learning. That's the whole thing. I'm trying to be a, better live streaming person because I think it's fun. And it's good to be able to think on my feet. And clearly, I could use some work. If I'm ever going to be prime minister. Furthest thing from my mind. I have been watching more and more people who do the live stream thing regularly, and they all have like one thing in common. They're like at least 10 years younger than me. And it's surreal to me to think of, just how for the generation that came after me, this is very much like, being online is just part of the thing. And we as Gen X used to be like, this is terrible. Your entire life is on YouTube, and all your fuck ups as a kid are going to be like public knowledge for the rest of your life, because we're, we were raised to basically anything we did that was a fuck up was thrown in your face for the rest of your life. We were the throwaway generation, right? And so it's interesting to see the difference in younger streamers who have, and admittedly, like a lot of them have a lot more experience than I do in terms of that. Like I'm not going like, I'm not as good as them, so I should quit and become a mortgage broker. But it's fascinating to me to see the difference, very much an age difference thing, right? Like I feel like I communicate fairly well. Even when I'm cocking up, I got a good voice. I wear good t-shirts. I got my crow. It's a mirrored thing. I don't know, or not mirrored, I guess. But it's a skill I have to learn. Whereas thinking back to my kids when they were young, playing video games and live streaming at like 10, and that was just a cool thing to consider, that like they've grown up this way. My kids are not live streamers, and they're not doing all that you know, there was a time when they were young when they were like, I want to be PewDiePie when I grow up. I don't know if they said PewDiePie. God, I hope not, but I feel like they did. But it's just fascinating to watch. You know, I remember going to visit my grandfather when he was 99, which was quite a few years ago. He's dead, died at 99. But I went to visit him in his own apartment, you know, prior to his death, quite a few times. And we'd have these great conversations, and he would talk about, like, you know, the world as when he grew up. And I think that's some cool shit. And I hope that my kids or grandkids sort of, you know, have the same relationship with me and the stories that I have to tell. It seems weird to imagine that I'll be like, when I was a boy, we didn't even have the internet yet. Oh, yes, let alone your space concubines. We only had dial-up modems for online single-line BBSs where we could play games like Pimp Wars. And you know, but my grandfather's situation was, you know, he was born at the turn of the century, not this past one, but the one before that. So he was born like, I think 1901 ish. I can't remember for the life of me now. And you know, growing up, cars were real. He knew they were real. Occasionally, they would see one. And by the time he died, he, you know, was living in a world where there was an internet. The vast amount of information change and societal change and stuff he found fascinating. He did not keep up. I'd love to tell you that he was that 99-year-old man going like, oh, look, I built my own web page, and it actually is used, you know, if you right click in here, you can see naked girls. Me. But no, he was in fact like totally disconnected from the technology. But he would do things like go to the library and buy a book about computer hardware just because he wanted to understand it, and then want to have a conversation with me about the PCI bus. And I'd be like, that's cool. I have a degree in this. I don't know shit. I work with people. But yeah, so it's cool to me to think about like the difference between my generation and my kids' generation and what their kids' generation is going to be like. And, you know, it's exciting. It's interesting. So yeah, watching streamers that are, you know, a decade or two younger than me, and have been sort of grown up doing this kind of stuff. It's really interesting and it's really fascinating, and it gives me all the pointers and makes me go, haha, I know what I can do better. Not sucking being one of the things. That's DeVille Deggy 08. I don't. Oh, that'll be. I know who you are. That's Sarah. Hey, elder teen boy came in the door and then proceeded to drop things. He's trying very hard to be quiet. It's quite adorable, and I'm harassing him. Hi, Sarah. It's good to see you. He's like putting his coat away, but it's a loud coat, so he's like ninja quiet. Tell Seth hi. Sarah, Abby's friend Sarah says hi.
Hi, Sarah.
He says hi back. I know you heard that, but I felt the need to interject myself.
Also, dinner was really good. Thank you.
Wasn't it? I made delicious soup. I'm very very happy with it. We got a diluted version because my best friend was having a hell of a day. She didn't sleep last night, and she was really frustrated. She wanted to. My stream is buffering so bad. Yeah. I don't know. I'm plugged in. I got a wire. It's attached. I don't know why I'm getting such bad connection. Apparently it's better on YouTube, I think. I don't know. My kids could never be ninjas. They're louder when they try to keep quiet. I think that's true for mine as well. Certainly the youngest, his idea of being quiet is like elephant noises. It's pretty impressive. He does things like he slams doors and then is completely bewildered by the fact that I go, "Why did you slam the door?" And he's like, "What? I didn't remember." Whereas as the elder child in the home he's much more thoughtful, and he actually has become quite a ninja in his day. So on the off chance that he shows up after his old man goes to bed, he very rarely wakes me up. And yeah, if he wakes up before me, these things very rarely happen because I almost never sleep. So it's not a thing. But every now and then, it is better on the tubes. I think it's something to do with how I'm set up. Like I have this whole thing, this restreaming thing that's sending me to all three places, and I feel like it's much slower as a result. So I'm getting like right now I just hit like 1,300 kilobytes per second, and now I'm at 1,700, and like it's all over the map. But YouTube is like the primary that I'm using, so I feel like Twitch is getting the shaft. And I don't know if there's anything I can do to sort of resolve that, because space only travels so fast, and either I pick a platform and stick to it, or I don't. I don't know. Twitch is if I guess if I'm gonna live stream, I should sort of make it my primary, and then YouTube would be where I like upload videos and stuff, because I'm at like 16 followers on Twitch or something like this, so like almost a cool baker's dozen. I guess it's over a baker's dozen, but you know what I mean. But it's clearly the live streaming format, so I don't know. It's all things. It's all stuff and things. I joked earlier, I was like, I'm gonna edit the fuck out of this, but you know what? I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna leave it up as it is on the YouTubes, because it's all learning. I can look back and be like, haha, you didn't have a point, did you, old man? Did you forget it in your old age? But yeah, the soup I made, I'm gonna tell you about. Because I think I actually have toyed with making VODs about like some of the food I make. Not that I'm a great chef. Far from it. I'm actually pretty much an idiot. Like all the things I do. But I feel like things the original idea was like doing a thing called like messages for my kids. And it's not about like, let me tell you about the world. It's more like, hey, if you want to make soup from bones, here's how you do that. Here's why you do that, because it's fuck off cheap. And now we're going to make soup from bones. And, sort of cobble together. You missed the beginning, you want to go back and watch after this. I don't think you missed a whole lot, but by all means, actually you did. There was all kinds of really wonderful things that I said along the way. I remember at one point saying space whores, which obviously was in relationship to the Mormons. But yeah, how often am I ever going to say space whores? Which I then changed to concubines, because as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, that's probably not the right words. Probably space concubines is better. But yeah, anyway, so I'm gonna do. I've been toying with the idea of making like soup from the bone, and my enchilada, which Sarah, I'm not sure if Abby's ever talked about the joys of enchilada, but it's a dish I invented completely out of thin air, and by that I'm taking credit for all the work of non-white people before me who made enchiladas, and depending on your time in history, non-white people who were Italian who made lasagna. And as the white man, I'm like, I did a thing. I made a thing up. I'm brilliant. It's basically like the way that I described it originally, and that I still sort of think about it, is it's like enchiladas, but if you were so fucking bad at wrapping them in the burrito part, that section of the cooking process, that you just said fuck it and like made layers of meat and cheese and enchilada wraps, and that works for me, and I'm okay with it. And so it's enchilada because it's like a chimera of the two dishes, and it makes me giggle. I'm gonna check Facebook. I haven't seen if anyone's no comments there. I often don't get a lot of comments on Facebook, and I blame it on the fact that Facebook sucks. That's not fair. I mean, it's true, but it's not fair. And yeah, like so today's soup was I woke up, I had thrown a couple of chicken carcasses in the freezer. I only found one, which was weird. But I pulled the carcass out, threw it in some water and some vinegar, and went about my work day. And at lunch I came along, filled up some more water because it was, it starts to boil off. Took the bones out, picked all the meat off them, chopped up a little bit more chicken, threw it in so that all the chicken could be chickening together, and then after work I tossed in some, and it's the week like tea kind of way to go about it. I have this delicious coconut curry sauce that I just dumped in as my flavor base. Added some spicy sauce, added a whole bunch of veggies, added some vermicelli noodles, a bunch of curry, and it wound up like it was peppy, but it was so good. And so I sent a bowl of that to my friend who was having a hard day via her son. That's right, it's COVID lockdown, and I saw another human being, and it was like illegal or something. So I'm pretty cool like that. But in fact, it was literally me handing him a bag with Tupperware in it outside, and then going in and washing my hands. And it was amazing. It was delicious soup, and hers was even spicier because I after I poured her Tupperware, I like filled it with water, filled my thing with water again, and then added some the noodles. So she got like super delicious, rich napalm. And I kept a thing of chicken broth for other cooking processes. But I think the big thing is that these are cool things to do. Food is awesome, and it's fun to cook. And two of my children live with me. One of whom is moderately interested in watching me cook and learning from me and stuff. The elder is more interested. But they're also, they're in their late teen era, and they're probably not that interested in hanging out with dad in the kitchen, and we're going to make Pop-Tarts. Oh boy. So, to me, it's maybe when I'm like old and dead and their kids are like, Dad, make soup. I want soup. And they'll be like, you know what? Your weird grandpa with the mohawk used to make soup. Why don't we do that? Can we have a cooking stream one day? Probably. I don't know if I'll do a live cooking stream, and I base it on the fact that I live with two teenage boys, and they're fucking gross. My kitchen is always vile, and I'm not sharing that with the world. So like if I can have a day where I wake up in the morning and it's clean, then yes, I will do a live cooking stream. But I wouldn't write any checks on that. Do I also keep my veggie scraps to make veggie broth-based soup? Okay, so here's the thing. I've heard this is an ADHD thing. I don't know if that's true or not. When I buy vegetables, what I'm doing is I'm pre-buying peat moss. I'm supporting fridge composting. I cold compost. So in theory, yes. Oh, and hi, Sean. It's good to see you, buddy. In theory, I kind of don't have veggie scraps because they all wind up gross. So the exception to that is I cook everything with peppers, whether it's little sweet peppers or big green, orange, yellow, whatever. Peppers I do lots of stuff with. Mushrooms I'm usually pretty good at using. I bought some arugula this week, which I used to make this amazing homemade pesto, which I made like a chicken pesto with served on pasta that was really delightful. It looked like twigs and berries, but it was easy to eat and delicious and wonderful. So I used arugula instead of spinach because I was feeling all fancy like that, and it was definitely awesome. So veggie scraps are, if I was someone who made veggie scraps, I probably would make a veggie broth. I've never done a veggie broth. I'm very much a carnivore and not in a like dickish like, well, I'm a carnivore and I like fish meat kind of way. That's how my brain thinks of cooking. And yeah, as Sugar says, I'm a big fan of bone broth and all the minerals that are in it. However, that said, veggie broth is nothing but good. I'm trying very hard to confront some of the brain problems I have when it comes to like eating veggies. Not brain problems like, veggies are gross, but problems like, oh look, all the vegetables I bought have turned into peat moss. So veggie broth is definitely something I think I should try to do. I mean, maybe that'll be like my next project is make a really good vegetable broth. But no, the answer to the question is I should, but I don't have veggie scraps, and B, I've never made a broth or veggie broth soup, but I should. I mushroom is the closest that I've come. I haven't made mushroom soup. It's still been with meat, but I made one of my early soups. Went like super overboard on the mushrooms when I was adding them, and like intentionally, but it was like, wow, you almost can't taste the meat, and it made me think I should learn to make mushroom soup. I love mushroom soup, cream of mushroom soup. Never did. But I happen to love mushrooms. And it's a good excuse to get my kids high on psilocybin. No. For the longest time, I was the most simplistic cook in that I'm really good at Italian food. And like Italian food, much like white people, it all looks the same to me. And so Italian food, I was able to like, and I'm talking like a marinara-ish meat sauce, red color with meat. And you can kind of put that on any pasta. You can kind of do whatever you want with it. So my diet was like that. What I call a stir fry, which is not a stir fry because I grew up with stir fries that were awful and ruined me for ever eating stir fries ever again. My father got a wok, and it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, which also says a lot about my upbringing and how fucking easy I had it. But yeah, the wok thing was terrible. My dad was the dad who didn't know how to do it, and so he'd be like, just grab leftovers. And I'm not talking about like, oh, hey, we had some leftover like Szechuan beef and some noodles. No, it'd be like, I got some pasta and some broccoli and some ranch dressing that's about to go. And that was a stir fry. And when I go to like, friends would go, hey, let's go to the fancy stir fry place where they make the fancy stir fries. And you get to like pick your own ingredients in a buffet style. And then they stir fry it for you. Isn't that amazing? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they hand it to me and it's just my fucking dad's pasta with ranch dressing and broccoli. And I'm like, how he ended up cooking for that restaurant, I don't know. I'm just kidding. But stir fries, I was definitely not a fan of. So what I make is not a stir fry. I don't know what it is. It's probably more like if you order Chinese food and you get like a side of rice and a dish that is something in sauce. So that's probably more, but something in sauce is awkward. Lul. I don't know what part of that you luled at, but I'm glad you're luling. Yeah, so I would like pasta, some kind of a stir fry thing. That's pretty much, I would just bounce the two off each other. And then chili on the weekends, I would like make crock pot chili. And it was definitely not a vibrant palate, but it kept me alive and I ate food. And when I was in the depths of poverty, that was the most important thing. And it was decent tasting food. So, it worked. And really, it was when my kids came to live with me that I was like, should probably step up my game. So I started adding little bits and pieces here and there. And lately, I've been enjoying that a lot. And I've been enjoying, my best friend and I will watch like The Chef's Table or the various barbecue shows that are on Netflix or Prime or whatever. And it makes you think about things. Like, I didn't know you fucking brined a chicken. No one told me that. I just learned that from TV. See, my parents told me TV made me stupider. Ha, mom and dad. TV taught me to brine a fucking chicken and you didn't. My parents didn't know how to brine a chicken. Or at least they didn't brine a chicken. My kid made the most disgusting stir fry last night. They put mushy rice and pineapple and a bunch of vegetables and chunks of chicken. Oh, hun. Oh my God. I am, like, I know as parents we're supposed to let them try new things, but you don't have to try that. That's fucking, I totally get, like, I was a kid that would have been like, I'm making my parents dinner. They got some canned pineapple and, rice. I'm glad it was mushy because as a kid I would have been like, just pour the rice in, the pineapple juice will infuse. And yeah, no, I feel you. My kids don't cook for me because my kids don't love me. But if ever they did, I'm fairly certain the elder would probably. He's the sort of kid who I think like I've taught him a few things, and I feel like very quietly he adds to his own repertoire. I think he's interested in these things and doesn't really talk about it. But I've seen him do interesting things. Like he made pasta sauce one night, the first time I ever saw anyone do this, and he added like a little bit of refried beans to it, which sounds like, what the fuck is wrong with that kid? It was delicious. It was really good. Yeah, you can't pretend to like that. That's that fucking mushy pineapple slop. So I think that he, if he ever made me food, it would be. And he's made dinner for the family. I'm being a dick when I say that, but it's very rare. Oh, I see. Sorry, I missed Sean's comment here. I was a very bland cook and only cooked the same 4 meals over and over until I stopped eating meat. So much progress and expansion since that change. Dude, I get that. I actually, again, like I just was reiterating that I was a very bland, repetitive cook. Bland, maybe not the word because I liked spice, but bland in the palate sense. I went on a date that was awful with a girl who was awful, who was a vegetarian and or she was a vegan, sorry, and we went to a vegetarian restaurant, and I of course like I'm a non-selective eater. If it's vegetables, I don't have anything against vegetables. When I say I don't cook them, it's because literally my brain ignores the fact that they exist. So when I go to cook food and I like you could fill my fridge with vegetables. I'd open it and be like, "Oh my God, we have nothing to eat." And legitimately be like, "How am I going to survive this?" And my kids could be like, "Dad, what about all this stuff?" And I'd be like, "What stuff?" So that's something I'm trying to fix. But going to this vegetarian restaurant or vegan restaurant, I knew that I was going to see all kinds of things I'd never heard of before, and it wasn't that. It was very much just like a full menu that everything looked amazing. It just didn't have meat in it, and it wasn't like one of the things I always used to feel about vegetarians was with all the soy dogs and soy turkey and stuff. I was always like, oh, they're just trying to pretend. No, not at all. Veggies are good. And you can do cool shit with veggies that you can't do with meat, and vice versa. But, I totally get how switching to vegetarian or vegan or pescatarian or whatever the diet, switching to that diet would definitely result in having to sort of change and explore and expand and create all kinds of new varieties. I ended up having the most delicious. It was what the fuck did I get? It was some kind of like a noodle and various veggie things, like a stir fry, but not shitty. And it was in a peanut sauce And it was just fucking astounding and full of flavor and full of the flavors of the vegetables that were, like we often don't even think about. Like fuck celery. Celery's stupid, but a lot of vegetables are delightful. And yeah, it was amazing. And I remember leaving that and being like, I should cook this way more. And then I would open my fridge and it would be full of vegetables and I'd be like, I have no food. That's why I have no hair on the sides of my head. Is I'm just like, where's my food? Veggies are cool, but have you ever had a nice juicy steak? Sarah. That's I like a nice juicy steak. I really do. In fact, I just describe myself as a carnivore. But I 100% appreciate the people who eat vegetarian and vegan. And I make the chastisey parent noises just because I have a lot of friends who are vegetarians and vegans, and I am certain that I have done my best never to be that meat guy, but I've seen that meat guy, and I've probably incidentally been that meat guy, but I've seen so many people who are like, let me tell you about what you don't know about vegetables is that the vegetables are stupid and beef is beefy. And you're like, oh, I know you were joking. I know. And I just find that so annoying. Like, why do I give a shit? I don't care who anyone fucks. I don't care, who anyone hangs out with. I don't care what people eat. None of that is important to me. Who are you as a person? And when I see people behave like that, and I know you were kidding, I'm not chastising you. You're good people, Sarah. When I see people doing that and they're like, you vegetarians just haven't tried enough bacon. Fuck off. Like, fuck all the way off. Maybe they like vegetables. Maybe they have personal reasons for eating vegetables. My youngest daughter has real gastrointestinal issues that make a vegetarian diet a lot easier on her body. I maybe there's people with moral opinions on the subject that maybe you don't share. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't all have to see the world the exact same way. Maybe it doesn't fucking matter if people are eating vegetables. Who gives a shit? If we live in a world where someone can, put genitals of anyone they want into their mouths and I don't have a say in it, and I don't have a say in it, and I shouldn't have a say in it, why are vegetables different? Let vegetables be like penises. Keep them to yourself. Sometimes it's dietary problems. I was talking about, my younger kiddo has problems with breaking down a lot of various foods and stuffs. But actually, both my eldest kiddos do have challenges with food. I never did. That's not true. I was lactose intolerant for a long time, and then I wasn't lactose intolerant, and then I am lactose intolerant now. But really, only like if I drink a glass of milk or I eat ice cream. If I eat yogurt or cheese or whatever, like it's a non-thing. But the other stuff, you'll know. Oh, you'll know. All right. Well, I think I'm at a point now where we've talked about recruitment. Oh, one of the children is home. Let's see how loud. It's okay. He knew. He whispered. He's learning. Yeah. Anyways, I'm probably gonna wrap up. Thank you for joining me, Sugar and Sarah and Sean. Sean, I haven't seen you in a very, very long time, and I hope you're doing well, my friend. The other two as well, Sugar, Sarah, but Sean is an OG buddy of mine from when he was in a band called Mark of Cain, and when I was in a band called I Love Mark of Cain. That's not a band. And also Dave Holmes on Facebook. Nate Reno popped in and said hi. It's been a fun time. So hopefully I didn't embarrass myself too hugely. If I did, I won't know because I'm kind of a sociopath or something. But in the meantime and in between time, that's it. Another edition of me randomly talking about stuff. Oh wait, the kids made spaghetti and it's spicy Italian sausages with no sauce was still good. Yeah, no sauce can be fine. My friend was British, and his parents invited me over one day, and it was pasta, and they were like, "Yeah, we're coming over, come over for pasta and meat sauce." I was like, "Right on! I love pasta and meat sauce," and they put it on the table, and it's like fucking pasta and meat. And I was like, "Do you know what a sauce is?" Like, I didn't say shit. And I was like, "This is gonna be fucking chewy." And it was good. It was good. There was enough, like the goo from the meat went on the pasta noodles, and it was fine, but definitely drier than I was expecting. What I was certainly used to. Italian sausages have the benefit of being, greasy AF, and I totally would enjoy that. One of the things that I learned to make, and this was from another, I was dating a girl, and she taught me to make pasta carbonara, which is pasta and eggs and Parmesan cheese and bacon. And you like incorporate the bacon fat in like the rendered grease goo into the overall dish. And like, you obviously season and veggies and things, but really, really super good. Very, very atypical sauce. I quite enjoy making that. Although I'm fairly certain everything I do wrong, which should come as no surprise to anyone. But I'm fairly certain that like if I met an actual Italian person, they would probably like cut me from stem to stern for calling it carbonara or the pasta that I make or any of these things. Anyways, you sidetracked me, sugar. Curse you. And guys, stay safe. And again, if anyone wants to like tip me and shit, there's links in the description. Saturday, I'm gonna be doing the live stream to raise money for. That's actually why I have a tipping option. I'm doing a live stream to raise money for Bear Clan Patrol YYC, which is a fantastic group that I want to support 100%. So please feel free to watch and donate stuff. None of the money donated that day will go to me. It will all go to them or to PayPal for service charges, but that's about the extent of it. Everything else will go straight to them, and they're fantastic. So please do check them out. And a huge thanks to my patron, Dave, Shithead Dave Anderson, who is just awesome. And if you want to be a patron, it's in the description. And if you don't want to be a patron, that's cool too. I like you anyways. Like, subscribe, share.